everyone, Gaijin Kumba here, and welcome back to Culture Shock. We break down your favorite games and anime and discover the culture that inspired them, and yeah, a couple of announcements really quick. First of all, guys, I did want to apologize that I didn't get this video out sooner. I wanted to get this done last week when the Pokemon Sword and Shield hype was at its fullest, but seeing some other YouTubers and my friends get their videos taken down, or blocked in all countries, or copyright struck, or demonetized, I thought it would be good if I let the heat die down just a little bit before giving my own opinion on this game. I understand that maybe this video wasn't going to perform like it should, but man, better that than no video at all. Second of all, yeah, this video is actually going to be a bit more casual and a bit more personal than my regular content, and the reason for that is twofold. First of all, this video is 100% speculation over my thoughts and some other people's thoughts about the Galar region in Pokemon Sword and Shield, so I wanted to make it a bit more personal. And the other reason is that next week I'm going to be taking this big giant research trip to Japan for a brand new show that I'm going to be soft launching in April. I need some brand new images, I need some research materials, I need a whole bunch of stuff, so I've actually needed to spend some more time prepping for that. And finally, a quick disclaimer. I have been super stoked to talk to you guys about all of this British culture that I've seen in the Pokemon Sword and Shield trailer, but admittedly, British culture isn't exactly my strongest suit, so I've been getting a lot of outside help, a lot of which has been coming from Twitter, but a big chunk of this video, I have to say, comes completely from my buddy Mordo, who's a Nottingham native. I mean, this guy has cracked so much information out of this 2-minute trailer that I might as well just say he wrote the entire video, so I just wanted to be transparent about that. So, my thoughts on cultural inspirations of Pokemon Sword and Shield? God, where do I even get started? Despite the fact that we only got a 2-minute trailer, there's 100 different things that I could pick apart. But for this video, I really wanted to focus on the largest chunk of info we've been given, the geography of Galar, the new region. Now, for starters, it's pretty common knowledge that the entirety of the Galar region is just Great Britain flipped on its head. But curiously, there's no Ireland, and I'm not even sure if Wales is even supposed to be on the map considering the lack of shape. Maybe it's unlocked post-game, or maybe it just hasn't been introduced yet. After all, this is the first trailer. So what about the towns, cities, and landmarks? Well, for starters, it's kind of a no-brainer that the starting area is Scotland. I mean, Protect-chan over here is wearing a Balmoral bonnet and a freaking cardigan for crying out loud. But if attire wasn't enough, the rolling green hills, the cozy layout of the town, and the modernized thatching does give the starting zone a gentle, rural Highland vibe. Moving north past the mountain range of the starting zone is a set of what looks like massive lakes. Now, this could be in reference to the Lake District or Lakelands in the northwest part of England. Remember, we're dealing with a flipped map of Great Britain, so what would be in the south in game is actually north in real life. Anyway, it would theoretically make a lot of sense for Lakeland to be a landmark in this UK recreation in Pokemon, as its national park of 16 frickin' lakes was made into a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2017. But on the flip side, another inspired possibility of these lakes could be the Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park, which is farther north back in Scotland. Yeah, it's kinda hard to tell in Galar where Scotland ends and England begins, but I think it's really more based on the Lake District due to its close proximity to the next big landmark we gotta talk about. Moving further on north, we come to the first massive city in the region, and while you might think that this giant tower in the middle of the city symbolizes London, that would be incorrect. How do we know? Well, the evidence doesn't sit in the macro of the geography, but the micro in its architecture. Where London is a city built upon bricks of grey and yellow, red brick cities are found in the Midlands like Nottingham, Birmingham, and Manchester, which is what we believe this massive city is based on, especially due to the tower's resemblance to Manchester City Hall. But the other big indicator that the city is based on Manchester is that the Pokemon city in question is not only red bricked, but also covered in modern industrialization. Steam pours from stacks, water wheels are churned by canals, and giant cogs and other mechanisms litter the buildings. This is likely in reference to the English Industrial Revolution of the 18th century. After the creation of the spinning jenny in 1764, Manchester had become the nation's center distribution for textiles and woven cloth, utilizing water-powered cotton mills which capitalized on the city's canals, like the Bridgewater Canal which was opened in 1761. Water wheels and canals which we can plainly see in the Pokemon trailer. But that's not all. This Pokemon city also apparently has a prominent rail system, which again ties it back to Manchester. Due to the massive industrialization of the city, public transportation became a must. Thus, in 1830, Manchester opened the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, the world's first steam-powered public train, first connecting Manchester to Liverpool, but later to Birmingham, London, and then Hull. With this in mind, it's actually quite possible that these public trains are going to be the primary modes of fast travel between locations, barring Pokemon-assisted travel, of course. I mean, you can even see railways leaving the city headed in both north and south of its location. And speaking of industrialization, you know how we keep seeing all of those splendorous, gem-encrusted mining caves in the trailer? Well, the real-world connotation behind that is probably a lot more unfortunate, because I believe that these mines are actually inspired by what is known in the West Midlands as Black Country. No, that isn't a racial slur, but rather a statement on the coal-covered clothes and skins of the miners that hollowed out the mountains for Shadfordshire thick coal to help fuel the Industrial Revolution in Manchester and beyond in the 1850s. This is also unfortunately where the disease Black Lung originated from, but this is Pokemon after all, so I suppose it would make sense to change the dark, dank coal mines of the Midlands to the sparkling mines of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Moving north, we come to two smaller yet very notable towns in the east and west. Now, to the east sits a small port town jutting from the mainland with a prominent lighthouse off the coast. Now, a lot of you guys had made mention of this, and I agree, that this is a shout out to the Birkenhead Peninsula and the New Brighton Lighthouse, with both landmasses being very prominent peninsulas and the respective lighthouses sitting far out of the mainland, on top of sharing very similar colors and architectural features. Now, to the west, this isn't even a theory. This settlement is literally just straight up Avebury. First, you can see the barley fields to the south, and as Morto put it, Avebury has barley all over the place, mate, giving the locale a sea of gold look. Next, the circular theme of this unnamed Pokemon town is very reminiscent to Avebury itself and its Neolithic henge monument, but that only gives way to another similarity between this Pokemon town and Avebury, its geographical mysteries. See, Avebury is only a single part of the county of Wiltshire, and within Wiltshire is Stonehenge and Salisbury Plain and the Cher Hill White Horse, which might explain the Stonehenge-looking area to the east of the Galar map, as well as the solid white giant humanoid on the hill. Yeah, a lot of folks said that it's actually the Kern Abbas giant, but that's all the way down in Dorset County. What I think Pokemon is doing with this particular monument is actually combining the solid white design of the Cher Hill White Horse and the humanoid design of the Kern Abbas giant to foretell a legendary giant, possibly even a Pokemon, that will play a major role in this game. Reason being comes from the next major location moving further north. This seemingly gigantic cave door along these rounded sea cliff faces. Morto and I spent hours trying to decipher what this might be, and we came to the conclusion that this ancient door and its surrounding formations may very well be in reference to the legendary Fingal's Cave in Scotland. Okay, so a little bit of folklore backstory. There once lived two giants, Finn McCool of Ireland and Benandonner of Scotland. They were supposed to meet on a specific field of battle, an area today known as the Giant's Causeway, connected by an international bridge of stone. However, as Finn got closer to Scotland, he realized that Benandonner was a much larger and more powerful giant than he, so he actually ran home to his wife, telling her to flee with him. Benandonner, wondering where the heck his rival was, actually made his way to Finn's house. Now, in the meantime, to help her husband escape Benandonner's wrath, she concocted a brilliant plan. When Benandonner arrived at their home, Finn's wife had said that he was out for a moment and instead invited Benandonner to stay and wait for her husband's return. Hearing her cry in the next room, Finn's wife went to go tend to their child, though this was actually just Finn disguised as a baby. But in Benandonner's mind, if Finn could birth a child this massive, surely he was a giant leagues higher in power and size than himself. So with this knowledge, Benandonner left Ireland and fractured the Giant's Causeway behind him so Finn couldn't follow, and retreated back to Scotland, retiring to his home in the Feylands through Fingal's Cave. So how do we know that this massive stone structure and game is based on Fingal's Cave? Well, for one, the geography. The area in question in Galar sits right on the edge of the ocean, with water finding its way into the rock structure, much in the same way as Fingal's Cave does in real life. Secondly, the rock structure itself. Fingal's Cave in Scotland and Giant's Causeway in Ireland are comprised of the same lava flow, which had tens of thousands of basalt pillars fused together to create the respective landmasses. And on the Galar map, you can see the circular formations of the hills and mountains seemingly fused together to form larger structures. And finally, the big frickin' cave door itself. Based on the ancient colorful paintings, this seemingly stone door was not naturally made, and far too large to be man-made. Not to mention that beyond the mountain that the door is sealed on is what looks like a fantasy fae town comprised of giant, variously colored, glowing mushrooms inside an extremely dense forest. If our theory's correct, this giant humanoid figure we see in-game could be Pokemon's very own version of Benandonner, and their own take on this tale of how he retreated into this massive seaside cave, leading him back to his home in the world of the Fae. Now at this point I'm sure you're wondering, but if Scotland's supposed to be way down here, what's Scotland's Fingal's Cave doing this far south, north?
isn't this supposed to be Great Britain proper? To which I say, for the most part, yes, this map is supposed to be Great Britain flipped upside down. But based on our speculation and the speculation of some of our followers on Twitter, this entire icy segment of the map is actually representative of a massive chunk of Scotland. See that huge wall to the south of the map segment as well as the wall to the north? These could actually be symbolic of the Antonine Wall and Hadrian's Wall respectively. Back in 142 AD, the Antonine Wall was built as a territory fortification for the Northlands that the Romans claimed for their empire, basically to keep the Scottish from retaking the territory. While in the south, 20 years earlier, Rome had constructed the Hadrian's Wall in order to keep the Scottish from entering their established province of Britannia. Yeah, it's kind of an odd geographical choice for the Pokemon team to make if the above mention is true, but I guess in a way it may very well make sense. Because just north of what we assume to be Hadrian's Wall, remember we're working with a flip map, is jolly old London itself. Yeah, there's absolutely no question about it. To the far west is the Palace of Westminster, complete with the Elizabeth Tower. And to the east of that is the London Eye, a massive Ferris wheel in the city, just next to the palace actually, whose unique crisscross wheel pattern and exterior carriages are easily seen within this massive Pokemon city. And to the east of that is what I assume to be this world's version of the Shard, a 95-story super skyscraper in Southwark, London, which is the tallest building in the United Kingdom, and sure enough, the tallest building in the entirety of the Galar region. To the south, a centralized fountain which looks a whole heck of a lot like the fountain at Trafalgar Square, where all of London comes to celebrate. And finally, a curious flower-looking building to the far west. Mordo and I weren't sure if this was either an opera house, a huge Pokemon center, or something, but the one conclusion we did draw is that it looked suspiciously like the Tudor Rose, also known as the Union Rose, representing the union of the House of York with the House of Lancaster. Yeah, unfortunately guys, there were just some things that we just couldn't figure out. Like, what in the heck is this massive fortified looking building with a dragon's gate and tower spire shaped like a crown? Like, is this a parliament building? The HQ of this game's Team Rocket? Home to Victory Road and the Elite Four themselves? And what about this massive snow-capped building to the far east side? It's obvious that there's one of those European football stadium gyms at the top, but what about the rest of it? Is it a villa? Is it a hotel? I don't know. But the good news is that we've got more than enough to chew on when it comes to the limited info that we have, most of which we didn't even have time to cover here. Like the Anglo-Saxon runes in front of that one gym in the trailer, the unique British-styled uniforms that these kids wear, especially those freaking ties. And we weren't able to even mention our theory on the 3 starters, most of which our contemporaries have come to the same conclusion on, but we do have some differences. And honestly, there's no telling how far down this rabbit hole we're gonna go once we get more information. But for now, I gotta wrap up this video and get ready for Japan. I hope you guys enjoyed this little speculative video, and don't worry, Culture Shock proper is going to be back in the regular swing of things come the 13th or so. I just had a weird lapse in scheduling and needed an extra slot filled. So I hope to see you guys when I get back with that brand new show, and until then everyone, this is Gaijin Kumba, signing out.